we interrupt this incredibly awesome music to bring you some incredibly awesome political talk on Damn Radio.
Hello, good evening, welcome. I am Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor. And I apologize for starting about 30 seconds later than I was supposed to. But hey, I had I was in the middle of something. I'm really sorry about that. At any rate, maybe I'll be able to cut that out. Maybe not. Maybe it'll just be what do they call that in literary terms? They call that a pregnant pause. That is a pregnant pause. But I'm really sorry about it. I was listening to some ridiculous thing it wasn't ridiculous. It was actually pretty damn funny. I have a new hero, and I was listening to it, but I couldn't find the right one. And she may be my hero for a different reason. But before I get into that, first I just apologize for about 30 seconds of dead space. Sorry. And I'm Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor. I'm coming to you live from the Lake Ozark Real Estate of the Art Studio. You can phone in at 573-746-8020. I am sleepless still. Don't know what the hell's going on with me. You can send emails that I never read to live@demradio.com or Samuel T at International Flavor. I was requesting an interview a minute ago with somebody, and I'm hopeful that I get it. I think that would be entertaining. And I watched the entire video of him on another channel. I'm not going to mention it until I receive a response, at least, and see what happens in that regard. But at any rate, I'm just going to be a rambling man today, and having all kinds of various topics. But I have a new hero. Well, I don't know. Hero's probably not the right word. But get this article, and I'm trying to find more information on it even now. See what I can find out about this, and see if I can give you some more information. But we live in a time where our politicians are just pansies. They don't do anything. And they're, for the most part, big freaking losers. And so it's hard to honor any of them. So I want to talk to you about, I'm typing at this time because I want to find out more about this story from both sides of the fence and of the world, and see what people are saying, because there's been a lot of talk about it. So I suppose I've been, what do you call it? Prepping it too much without telling you what in the hell I'm talking about. But it's a U.S. even Congresswoman, and EU politicians, according to this person, which I'll get to in just a second. Why don't I just share it with you? EU politicians have been displaying what she says sociopathic behavior with their eagerness to derail any attempts to stage Russia-Ukraine peace talks, says U.S. Representative Paulina Luna, Florida Republican. She made the remarks on her X feed on Monday and accused EU officials of being, quote, comfortable sending youth. It's really not youth. I have to correct her there. The average age is 47 from Ukraine, from both nations to die if it serves their own self-interests. And then she says further, I'm watching EU politicians condemn peace talks between Russia and Ukraine, while none of them are the ones fighting on the front line, she wrote. They're advocating for the erasure of entire bloodlines of Russian and Ukrainian families. It is sociopathic. In a separate post, she replied to a guy named Marko Mickelson, who's the head of the Estonian Parliamentary Foreign Affairs Committee, who called her out over her meeting with presidential aide Kirill Dmitriev last week. Mickelson accused her, an otherwise normal person from the free world, as he put it, of becoming so dependent on a dictatorial mindset. Naivety, money, stupidity, belief in conspiracy theories, he wrote. She shot back, said, just because I'm not a war shill doesn't mean I'm wrong. Well, right, just because you're not paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. Isn't that true? And she stressed that, here's another good take, Americans have zero interest in dying in a foreign war or a nuclear arms exchange. Yeah. For years, NATO and the EU refused to pay their fair share, and now they want us to bankroll endless foreign wars. Let this be a warning. Any politician, anywhere in the world, who demands that others bleed while they sit safely behind a podium is unfit for office, including you, Marko Mickelson, she wrote. Luna met Dmitriev during his multi-day visit to the U.S., conducted after the proposed U.S. summit, Russia-U.S. summit in Budapest. It was called off by Trump. The Congresswoman has long been an outspoken advocate for peaceful solutions and the development of economic ties between countries, Dmitriev wrote in his Telegram channel after the meeting. Well, there's a couple of things. You can't say anything about it being she has long been, because she wasn't elected until 2022. So it's not like she was born in, born in 89 or something. Yeah, she was born in May 6th of 89. Boy, does that make me feel old. But she did serve in the Air Force, and she is Florida representative, 13th Congressional District. So more power to her for these strong comments, and at least temporarily, I have decided that she is my little mini hero, and I very much enjoy that story. So, I've spent quite some time now, a year plus. Do you realize that I'm in year 2? I know that the JR's anniversary was some other time. I don't know when it was, but I chose to do at 150 episodes is when I picked my year, but I know it was more than that because I deleted a whole bunch of them. So I really don't know how many there that I did beforehand or not. So, but I put year 2 as of October 1st. So and it's probably a little bit longer than that, but I'm in year 2 here on the station. And, I think it took me how many months, and I still make mistakes like today in the 30 seconds of dead air. I still make mistakes every now and again, but boy, I had some trouble when it was when I was trying to do it remote all the time, and it wasn't always effective or positive. Now, I also have a new moronic opinion person to talk about, and this one I will play just because it's hilarious listening to this nut job talk. Let's see what we can come up with, if I can do this right, or if she's going to be too loud and yelling in our ears. She's got an abrasive sort of voice anyway, and I am not in on this deal. Oh, no, we got to get to the beginning. Let us begin at the beginning, which is a very fine place to start. When you read, you begin with ABC. And did you know that when you sing, you begin with do, re, mi? And so let us start at the beginning with this nut job. Sarah Payne. How the Ukraine war will impact Russia. Now, she is a professor. Oh, geez, you got to know this. And why am I playing it? I don't know, because every once in a while it's good to get the opinion of a person who is completely wrong. And here it comes. Ready?
So they have absolutely, positively lost this war.
She's talking about Russia. Absolutely, positively lost the war. She says, okay, let's hear more.
They have made their country so much weaker.
Oh, is that true? Their country is weaker. When's the last time you were there, woman?
Taking Crimea?
Taking Crimea? Who the hell would think that? That was 2014. That was 11 years ago. Oh, my gosh. And listen to what she says about Crimea. This is going to be great.
It was a nice vacation spot. Turns out it's not even good as a naval base anymore.
It's not a nice vacation spot anymore because the Ukrainians are sending cluster rounds over there to blow up families on the beach.
With land-based drones. Great. What are you going to do with these things? They're just...
What are you going to do with land-based drones? You're going to bomb the crap out of people. That's what they're doing with them. What do you think the Ukrainians are doing with them? Nut.
Income sinks. So they have...
Income has been sinking, she says. The income has been sinking. I'd like to see some back up of that minor statement there, because I know what I see. And I've been to Russia since 2022 5 times, 6 times, something like that. I don't know. It's been a couple of times a year since then that I've been there. So it seemed to be doing reasonably well to me, better than they were. So this lady is named Sarah Payne, and she's definitely a pain, and not very bright as far as professors go. She's certainly missed the point on this one, and she hasn't. This is not good. But then I found another person who I've asked for an interview, and we shall see what happens there. Who is this? Oh, this is some guy named Valuetainment. That seems like a lot of fun. They have 7 million subscribers. Wow. I have 15,000. All in Russia. That's fun. Well, most of them. That's hilarious. But anyway, I'm looking to make some sort of interview with someone. We shall see if that comes about. This one's kind of morbid, but there's several stories I wish to include here. But wait a minute. I wanted to get into more about Miss Luna, if I found more about her. Okay, so basically, where is the Luna part in Dmitriev? Let's see. So remember last week me talking about, it was October 21 and 22 when Trump paused the proposed Putin-Trump meeting in Budapest on the 24th to the 26th. Kirill Dmitriev, Putin's investment envoy and longtime head of Russia's sovereign wealth fund, was in the U.S., and he had 3 days of talks with U.S. administration officials. Media reports parallel meetings with Trump figures in Miami. And on the 26th, he posted attempts to disrupt U.S.-Russia dialogue were pointless. Independent and Ukrainian outlets echo that he's in Washington for talks. But on October 27, yesterday, Representative Paulina Luna blasts the politicians on X as sociopathic, saying that they're advocating for the erasure of entire bloodlines of families. This is true. Same day, Marko Mihkelson, the chair of Parliament and Foreign Affairs in Estonia, blasted her back, and they had this exchange. So a lot of the Russian news was saying that her remarks, or like I'm saying, were reasonably, were fair and were correct. I mean, she is correct. There ain't no need to have this. And Dmitriev, in the West, he's been described as not your typical presidential aide, but as Putin's, like a very important advisor to Putin. And RT claims that there were actually talks in the White House. I don't remember seeing any of that, but Reuters said they had U.S. administration officials, but didn't say who. So the exact counterparts have not been confirmed of who he was here to see. But Kirill Dmitriev is up pretty far up on the top. You know what I'm screaming? And the Budapest summit is still on ice, though, and the EU leaders are still pushing a pause in the conflict, and Russia's still beating the snot out of Pokrovsk and a couple other cities. So Luna, for her part, has been pretty upfront about it, and the Baltics, which is where this ne'er-do-well politician was from Estonia, he was, is very fearful that premature talks. They don't want to have talks. They want the war to continue. They say it'd be it's too early for talks. Too early. Here we are nearly 4 years in, and it's too early for talks. And they welcome the postponement of the summit. They say that Dmitriev has been sanctioned and he shouldn't be in the U.S. anyway. And they don't like Russia claiming that they have the momentum on the field, which they do. And other people like, in the government in that area say Luna's stance is naive and pro-Kremlin. Of course, you're a Putin shill if you're one of them. But you can follow these yourself. You can go out and read these entertaining posts that go back and forth. But it's not really clear who exactly Dmitriev met with, although we believe that he met with Luna, and so I'm not positive where, but Luna said something on X, Mihkelson on X, Dmitriev was Reuters, AP and Reuters talked about the summit, RT and TASS talked about it. I've been trying to find anybody else who has anything entertaining to say besides that, but there's nothing really besides that. So not much of a potential for a deep dive on any of that, unfortunately. So there you freaking have it. But she's still my hero. I'm gonna keep her as my hero. Today is the day that the Russia's top drone warfare center has celebrated. It's a kind of a dubious celebration, but they celebrate 10,000 successful strikes by their drone operations. And there's a video to go along with it. And it's a pretty good video, of what they're doing and tearing stuff apart. But let's tell this story as well. The Rubicon Drone Operations Center, a key component of Russian Defense Ministry's drone program, achieved its 10,000th confirmed strike, said the unit on Monday. This unit shares footage of its operations online on its Telegram channel. Check out Rubicon if you're interested. Established in August of 2024, so they haven't even been around that long, a little more than a year. They coordinate frontline drone operations, innovation training, and data sharing efforts across the Russian forces. The center said it had significantly accelerated the pace of missions in recent months and has released its statistics, saying more than 1/3 of Rubicon's confirmed strikes, that's 3,750, Rubicon confirmed strikes have been against other drones, Ukrainian drones, including multi-copter drones and fixed-wing types, as well as ground-based robotic craft. Communication and electronic warfare equipment were over 16% of successful hits, followed by armored and unarmored vehicles and stationary troops. So the Ukraine infantry were targeting about 3.5%, a smaller share than any other category, which are Rubicon and Russian Defense Ministry publish footage of drone operations pretty frequently, and one on Tuesday showed an attack on Ukrainian vehicles and troops in Sumy. And some of these videos are, it's pretty amazing what drone warfare is becoming, and I'm telling you, I suppose this is going to sound a bit, I don't know what. I was in the Army for between active duty, where I was for not quite 10 years, and reserve time, another 5.5, 6 years. I have little more, less than, I think by the time they calculated it all, I had a little bit less than 15 years in the military. And no, it was, whatever, a little bit more, I think. I don't recall, but active duty time was not quite 10. And I'm telling you that I was, rarely afraid, and I don't think, I mean, obviously, if you're involved in wartime or something like that, you're going to be, pretty fearful, of course, but professionalism would kick in and all that stuff, and I enjoyed what I was doing, and I never thought too much about it. I knew that there was a contract that I had signed that said, I gave my life to Uncle Sam for the period of time that I was serving, and that was that. I wasn't gonna fight it if the time came up. I wasn't gonna cry about it. If it was time to go to war, I would go, and then I would try to do the job that I signed up to do if I was in there. Well, turns out I was in a position where all I did was talk. Gee, there's a surprise, isn't it? Just in a foreign language. But my point in telling you that is, I would have gone. I would have done what I was doing. These days, I don't know. This drone warfare. I think it's an extremely strong encouragement for both sides. Excuse me, and the freaking world to learn how to get along, for God's sake, because when a drone's coming after you, you're pretty lopsided. I mean, what are you going to do? Watching these things and knowing how close they are and how little you can do about it. You can't, what are you going to do? Knock it down with your hand? You know, it's ridiculous. And so there are plenty of videos out. Go check out Rubicon drone unit and watch how these guys are blowing up vehicles continually. Humvees, going tanks, and it's hard to avoid. They can't avoid them. You know, what are you going to do? And these things blow them up, and then there are people hiding under grass and under trees and in houses and in everything. And these drones, fly in the window, and it has got to be a horror story of life, and you can't. I mean, no matter where you hide, you can't avoid them. Recent video highlights show intercept operation against these Ukrainian drones and strikes on their communication infrastructure. I mean, they're blowing up. They're sending, like I told you yesterday, 700 to 800 a day. And those are the bigger ones, of what they are doing. And it's a hell of a... why is my scroller not working? Son of a nutcracker, we're locked up. How is that possible? Well, okay. We'll go to a different screen and see what happens. Alrighty then. Well, why can't I read the rest of the story? I just don't know. Well, I guess we're going to go back to it another way. There we go. Now it is coming through. So, last week, Rubicon released footage of a mission that identified and destroyed a Ukrainian anti-aircraft system using a Lancet loitering munition. And the strike was carried out from 55 kilometers away. And, their range is somewhere in the 80-kilometer part. It's... a dubious, like I said, anniversary, but there you go. Here's something if you're all about the U.S. Killing people and establishing their own regime change. This one pisses me off, and I don't like this. A U.S. federal agent secretly attempted to recruit Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro's personal pilot as part of a plot to capture the leader and deliver him into American custody on drug trafficking charges. Same thing we do. Didn't we do this with Noriega years and years ago? And, don't we just go kill people that we, and the way to do it is claim that they're criminals and then just say, well, they need to go. You get to, it's our decision. Nobody else's. And, who is it? You just get to decide who you kill. And then they just put somebody else in. This is what they call a regime change. And we shouldn't be involved in it. Citing 3 current and former U.S. officials, as well as one of Maduro's opponents, the outlet claimed that... AP, anyway. The outlet claimed that Homeland Security agent Edwin Lopez met with Maduro's pilot, a guy named General Bittner Viejas, in the Dominican Republic in 2024. He offered the pilot money and protection in exchange for diverting Maduro's plane to a location where the U.S. authorities could arrest him. The pilot was non-committal and continued to exchange messages with the agent for more than a year, even after Agent Lopez retired in July of 2025. Lopez reportedly cited a U.S. Justice Department announcement doubling the bounty from Maduro's capture to $50 million and urged Villegas to be Venezuela's hero. The pilot refused, called Lopez a coward, and cut off contact with him. These revelations come as the U.S. steps up military and intelligence pressure on Caracas. President Trump has authorized the CIA to conduct covert operations inside Venezuela. This is crap, by the way, and has deployed warships, aircraft, and thousands of troops to the Caribbean for what Washington likes to call an anti-drug campaign. In recent months, U.S. strikes on vessels near Venezuela and Colombia have killed dozens of people, and Trump says that these actions are targeting narcotics traffickers. And U.S. officials accuse Maduro's government of running a narco state. Okay, so suddenly that's your affair to deal with, right? Let's say it's true. What gives you the right to go into another country and tear it up? I mean, let the country do it. You know, I am so against this type of thing. Nobody will ever convince me that this is what we're supposed to do, that this is effective foreign policy. This is BS is what this is. But the Venezuelan president denied the allegations of being a narco state and calls them a pretext for regime change. I don't know if he's a drug dealer or not. I don't give a crap, but it is definitely a pretext for regime change. He also described Trump's admission of covert CIA activity in Venezuela as unprecedented and desperate. Maduro has placed the military on a heightened alert and stated Venezuela maintains a large arsenal of Soviet-era air defense systems. Moscow, a close ally of Caracas, has condemned this U.S. campaign. Earlier in the month, the Russian ambassador to the UN, Vasily Nebenzia, accused Washington of plotting a coup in Venezuela under the guise of an anti-drug operation and calls it a flagrant violation of international law and of human rights. So, if you want to know whether or not we're anti-Russia, this story helps point out that we are, because going into Venezuela is intended to put pressure on Russia. It has nothing to do with drugs, okay? This is nothing to do with drugs. If it had to do with drugs, well, they'd take the boats, pull them over, arrest them, and prove it. But they won't. They just continue to blow them up. Let's see. So there's a mystery drone, another one. Here we go with more drone games, more nonsense. Ready? Mystery drone was downed near a U.S. Army base. Here we are back in Estonia again, right? Estonia claims that these two UAVs were flying near barracks at Camp Rido. An unidentified drone was shot down near a base housing U.S. troops in southeastern Estonia, close to the Russian border, the Baltic nation's military announced. The incident occurred at Camp Rido, which hosts the 5th Squadron of the U.S. Army's 7th Cav Regiment. The unit arrived in February to replace troops from the 30th Infantry. Allies detected drones flying in the immediate vicinity of the 2nd Infantry Brigade campus at 4:30 p.m., one of which was brought down using an anti-drone rifle, said Estonian Defense Forces spokeswoman Lise Voxman on Tuesday. She added that the downed UAV was not recovered. Why not? If you shot it down, where is it? Where'd it go? NATO dispatched fighter jets to patrol the eastern flank after Poland accused Russia of violating its airspace with more than a dozen drones in September, on September 9th, my brother's birthday. In a separate incident a week later, Polish Prime Minister Tusk said that 2 Belarusian nationals were detained for flying a UAV over government buildings in Warsaw. And Moscow wasn't involved in either case, but we blame Russia anyway. So who knows what they're going to blame this one on. And on September 19, Estonia also claimed that 3 Russian MiG-31 jets entered its airspace and remained there for more than 10 minutes. And the Russian Defense Ministry said that flight was carried out in accordance with international law and did not violate the borders of any country. Russia, Russia, Russia. Remember that from the Brady Bunch? Didn't they always talk about that? Why is it that Israel can't stop fighting everyone? Do they have any friends at all except us? Well, I don't know that we're their friend. We're their lapdog. We just do what they say. And it's continual. What do we do? Let's talk about this. The Middle East remains quite restless. The region is still one of the most volatile in the world. You think? Despite occasional... This is by a guy named Morad Sadigadza, if I said that right. Sadigzada. Yeah, hope I said it right. President of the Middle Eastern Studies Center. Despite occasional diplomatic initiatives and temporary agreements, fundamental contradiction between key players hasn't disappeared. Situation is fragile, unpredictable, where any local flare-up can swiftly escalate into a broader crisis. Well, that's because it's if you have Big Brother on your side, just like Kiev did for several years, under the Biden administration, do whatever you want. And we would always back. Everybody was backing. Now it's not quite as clear. But with Israel, trust me, it's clear. They control us, not the other way around. Earlier, we examined in detail the situation within and around Iran, its internal challenges, foreign policy ambitions, role of regional security architecture. So let's look at Israel now and analyze both the domestic political dynamic and the external context in which the country operates. We have Big Brother on our side, and so we'll do whatever we want, even if we piss them off, because even if we piss them off and do exactly the opposite of what they want us to do, they're gonna back us anyway. Which is true. We haven't seen anything else for the longest of time. This perspective allows us to understand how internal factors, political instability, social division, shift in military doctrine, intertwine with external challenges, including threats from neighboring states, relations with the United States and Arab countries, and the consequences of the recent horrific developments in Gaza. Although a peace agreement on Gaza was supposedly reached under Trump's leadership, its durability is highly uncertain. A formal ceasefire and political arrangements do not mean that the root cause of the conflict is resolved. Why is it that Russia continually talks about root cause of the conflict? Well, how about you use as your paradigm of hope or lack thereof by looking at Gaza and Hamas and Israel and the U.S.'s nonsensical role in all of that. On the one hand, Trump gets to claim victory for enforcing a peace, but on the other, it's not really peace if one side doesn't have to live up to it. And, I'm not pro-Hamas at all. And do they break it? Are they, good folks? No. But you don't kill 67,000 with a good number of those, a huge percentage of those children. And no blame at all toward the Israeli side, Palestinian side, however, views this not as peace, but as a pause imposed under U.S. pressure, a temporary and unstable truce that lacks any real progress toward normalizing Gaza's status, rebuilding its economy, or erasing any blockade. On the streets, this is not a historic breakthrough, but a yet another externally imposed, short-lived, fragile intermission. Moreover, any agreement concerning Gaza immediately runs up against broader unresolved issues. Question of Jerusalem, the fate of the West Bank, and larger Palestinian causes. None of these knots have ever been untied, nor will they be. The parties are formally brought to the table. They sign some papers, but nobody shares any sort of shared vision for the future. Armed infrastructure persists in Gaza, and in Israel, a powerful domestic demand endures a force-based approach to the Palestinian question. Force. That's it, force. And nobody will stop them. Regional actors, including Iran and several others, continue to view Israel as the focal point of instability. Frankly, I agree with them. All of this renders the truce exceedingly vulnerable. A single incident, a single strike, a single border clash will bring this framework crashing down yet again. In other words, we've declared peace, but genuine peace is certainly elusive. So a key factor influencing the region's conflict potential is the internal political process of Israel itself. It is this domestic political dynamic that largely determines how the country defines its security strategy. On the eve of the October 7 events of last year, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu succeeded in forming a ruling coalition that included far-right nationalist forces. These factions adhere to a rigid ideology and openly advocate expanding Israeli control over all historically disputed territories: Gaza, Jerusalem, West Bank. For them, the issue of security is inseparable from the pursuit of ideological and religious dominance, making any compromise with the Palestinians virtually impossible. Despite the peace agreement and ongoing efforts to stabilize, on October 22nd, the Israeli parliament approved in a preliminary reading a bill proposing the annexation of more of a large parts of the West Bank. This is expected to trigger a new wave of conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, especially as the international community would like to preserve this fragile ceasefire. Notably, the vote took place while U.S. President J.D. Vance was in Israel, working to strengthen the ceasefire. Before departing the country, Vance called the action a strange and foolish political stunt, and he reminded reporters that Trump's position was clear. Israel must not annex any part of the West Bank. But guess what? They're gonna do it anyway. And what is Trump gonna do about it? Zip. What is Vance gonna do about it? Zip. Washington's broad reaction followed swiftly. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio stated that the decision to advance annexation legislation would jeopardize Trump's peace plan. You think? Designed to bring a lasting end to the conflict between Israel and Hamas. Well, I mean, no doubt, but they don't listen to us. Never have. They don't need to. They know we're never going to do a damn thing about it. And it's called the Knesset. I hope I said that right. The Knesset held a vote, but the president has made it clear that we cannot support such a move at this time. How do you like that for waffling? At this time. Rubio told journalists for departing for Israel, "We believe it will pose a threat to the peace agreement." Well, no doubt. So do something about it. But you won't. You won't. Just last month, Trump addressed the issue himself and declared that he would not allow any steps that could derail the ceasefire, particularly amid growing opposition from the Arab states. They are a democracy. People will vote. People will take different positions. But right now, in our view, this could prove counterproductive, Rubio added. What does that mean? What did he say? I mean, talk about that Rubio is nothing but a politician. I mean, what did he say right there? What does that mean? They are a democracy and people will vote. People take different positions. Yeah, there's a genius statement. Right now, in our view, this could prove counterproductive. That's like saying a bridge may be icy. I mean, I suppose it could be. Bridges may be icy. The sky may be blue. I suppose that's a nice political way of saying things, Mr. Rubio. But here's a big nothing sandwich for you in his commentary. Far-right Israeli politicians, through their statements and actions, continue to demonstrate an unwillingness to make any genuine concession or pursue a fair resolution of the Palestinian issue. Their rhetoric and political behavior actively undermines diplomatic efforts aimed at stabilizing the region and fostering any new framework for cooperation. Yeah. This has been especially evident in the context of U.S. efforts to normalize relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia, a process that Washington sees as a cornerstone for regional security. You would think it is, and a means to reduce overall tension in the Middle East. Yet it's precisely the action and statements of certain Israeli officials that continue to jeopardize these initiatives. Days ago, a new diplomatic scandal erupted when Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich, a leading figure of the ultra-nationalist camp, said, "If Saudi Arabia wants normalization in exchange for the creation of a Palestinian state, then no thank you. They can keep riding their camels through the Saudi desert." Though he later issued an apology following domestic and international backlash, the very nature of his remark vividly illustrates the political atmosphere in Israel's current ruling coalition, one where provocation and ideological rigidity prevail over pragmatism and diplomacy. Diplomacy doesn't exist in Israel. It just doesn't. Such statements not only damage Israel's diplomatic image, but also strain its relations with key partners. I don't think they strain them at all. They are in charge, and we don't ever do anything about it, including the U.S. and the Arab states of the Persian Gulf. All of this underscores the extraordinary complexity of the current situation. I don't believe it's that complex. I don't want to say Israel's the bad guy, but they're the ones pushing. They always have been. And, I'm not pro-Hamas, not remotely, but call it. Why don't we blame both sides? I mean, it's always two sides to every conflict, but, we always only pick one, right? And against Israel, we'll never say anything. And the nonsense in Ukraine, if Trump had figured it out, it would be he would then be a hero, but unfortunately, he so far is not, at least in that regard. Donald Trump's efforts have provoked open irritation and resistance from Israel's politicians. The very forces that for years viewed him as a steadfast ally and guarantor of U.S. support. Today, these groups have turned against Trump, denouncing his plan as capitulation to the Palestinians and a betrayal of the vision of a greater Israel. A striking example came from Limor Sonhar Malek, one of the most radical members of the settler movement and a Knesset deputy who publicly boycotted Trump's address to the Israeli parliament. "I will not join in the applause," she declared, calling the peace deal a disgrace. In the early months following the events of October 7, Har Malek had urged not just a military victory, but the full reintegration of Gaza under Israeli control, proclaiming that true victory will come when the children of Israel play in the streets of Gaza. Yeah, they're going to be good neighbors, right? Although polls indicate that most Israelis do not support the idea of resettling Gaza, Netanyahu remains politically dependent on his far-right allies, whose ambitions frequently clash with any move toward de-escalation. When Trump, defying the expectations of Israel's right wing, halted the war and categorically ruled out the annexation of the West Bank, it came as a shock. His words, "I will not allow Israel to annex the West Bank. It's not going to happen," were a cold shower for those who had counted on Washington's support for their expansionist agenda. Well, they voted for it anyway, just, last few days. Until recently, far-right politicians had expected that Trump's return to the White House would give them free rein to advance their goals. Expanding settlements, annexation of Palestinian territories, and permanently burying the idea of a Palestinian state. Instead, the U.S. president unexpectedly became a restraining force rather than their enabler. His 20-point Gaza plan, which explicitly prohibits any territorial claims by Israel, was seen by them as an act of betrayal. After Trump's address in Israel, Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich openly declared there will be Jewish settlements in Gaza. "We have patience, determination, and faith. With God's help, we will continue our series of victories." His statement made one thing clear. Even if Trump temporarily forced the Israeli radicals to retreat, they view this only as a pause, not defeat. Even within traditional pro-Israel circles in the U.S., there is growing recognition that the actions of Israeli leadership cross a red line and now threaten not only Israel's own stability, but U.S. strategic interests in the Middle East. That's how I see it. Washington increasingly sees an Israeli government acting unilaterally with no regard for long-term consequences and in open defiance of its most important ally, which is us, the United States. A telling episode, and one that I bitched about quite a bit, was the Israeli strike on Doha, the capital of Qatar, an event that provoked deep frustration in the White House. Oh yeah, here's some frustration for you. What did we do about it? Nothing. According to Jared Kushner, the U.S. president's son-in-law, Trump felt that Israel had gone out of control. They've been out of control, bud, and that it was time to show firmness and prevent actions that, in Trump's view, were contrary to Israel's own long-term interests. He felt the Israelis had gotten a little out of control in their actions and that it was time to show greater strength and stop them from doing what he believed was not in their long-term interest, Kushner said on CBS. Crazy. Special envoy Steve Witkoff, who joined the same interview, added that Israel's actions had a metastasizing effect, as Qatar had been playing a critical role in mediating between Israel and Hamas. The strike on Doha, I'm still in shock over that. I mean, I can't believe we didn't do anything about it. We didn't do. I mean, what did we do? Zip. Unbelievable. The strike on Doha effectively jeopardized a fragile diplomatic channel through which the U.S. had been attempting to sustain peace. In reality, Israel bet on Trump not doing anything as an unquestioning ally, and it proved misguided from the beginning. I don't think so, because he still hasn't done anything. While many in Israel had expected his return to the White House to strengthen the traditional U.S.-Israel alliance and greater freedom of action, the reality turned out to be more complex. A clear signal of this came with Trump's very first foreign trip after taking office. Not to Israel, as many in the Israeli establishment had presumed, but to Riyadh. The president chose to begin his international tour not with a visit to Washington's historic ally, but to meetings with wealthy Arab monarchs of the Gulf. That decision revealed Trump's true priorities. Pragmatism of a businessman focused on economic and strategic gain rather than ideological loyalty or traditional commitment to Israel. Frankly, it's money. You know, what Israel, we're paying them. He was out we give them everything. He was out collecting money from Riyadh. From the outset, his regional policy reflected an interest in making deals and other pragmatic arrangements that directly benefit the U.S. This explains his early desire to pursue an agreement with Iran. And that was all nonsensical, too. And I don't think that went the way anybody intended it to go. A move that angered Israel's leadership. That's why they forced the issue by attacking themselves. For West Jerusalem, any dialogue with Tehran runs counter to the entire framework of its own national security doctrine, whereas for Washington, it represented an opportunity to de-escalate tension and extend U.S. influence through economic leverage and control over Iran's nuclear ambitions. The summer war between Israel and Iran only deepened these divisions. From Washington's perspective, it was Israel that derailed the diplomatic initiative and endangered the potential accord of Trump administration that they had been quietly developing. In the U.S. Capitol, it was still more general irritation and the growing sense that Israel is no longer acting as a strategic partner, but as an independent player willing to sacrifice American interests for its own agenda. And how can you believe that that's not true, by the way? It's absolutely correct. The domestic political climate in Israel remains one of the principal sources of instability and is a potential trigger for more open conflict. A divided society, weak institutions, radicalization of the ruling coalition have created a situation in which internal tension can easily transform into external aggression. This would lead either to a renewed war in Gaza or to a larger scale escalation with Iran. Netanyahu's all for that, by the way. He has found himself in an increasingly precarious position, however. His political survival depends on maintaining public focus on external threats and constant mobilization around the narrative of national security. For Netanyahu and his far-right allies, a state of permanent conflict is a tool of internal consolidation. As long as a country lives under the shadow of threat, questions of responsibility, politically, corruption scandals and governance failures fade into the background. Nobody's asking questions then, are they? Peace and stability, by contrast, will force the coalition to seek new forms of legitimacy, a process that will weaken its grip on power. Thus, the current atmosphere of tension and the risk of renewed war serve not the interests of Israel as a nation, but those of a specific set of politicians for whom conflict is a condition of political survival. I believe this is quite accurate. Yet further escalation would endanger not only Israel itself, but its relationship with its principal ally, the United States. In Washington and everywhere else in America, by the way, there are growing voices warning that Israel's actions are undermining American influence around the Middle East. After the strikes on Doha, which provoked anger within the Trump administration, discussions have quietly begun among U.S. diplomats. I don't think we have any. And policy experts, I don't think we have any of those either, suggesting that Israel is becoming an unpredictable partner. They shouldn't suggest it. They should flat out say it. One no longer fully trusted on matters of security. I don't trust him. Haven't for quite some time. And I don't know who would with the way they've been behaving. All of these developments form part of a broader geopolitical realignment. A gradual unraveling of what? An old world order. Wonder if it's the deep state, friends and neighbors. The future of the region remains uncertain, and mounting turbulence threatens not only strategic alliance, but ultimately the very survival of the Israeli state in its current form. Now, you don't have to agree with all of that, but that was a well-written article. It's by a guy named Rad Sadigzadia. I can't say that right. President of Middle East Studies Center. And I, frankly, wanted to share it with you because it's similar to the way that I feel about some of these things. You know, I'm not anti-Israel, not remotely, but I'm anti-creating war for the sake of war, or to just take property. They're pretty open about it. Yeah, we're gonna have Israeli children playing on the streets of Gaza. You know, that's their politicians saying this. It's not very peaceful. Let's put it that way. There's not a lot of peace going on. Did you hear about the police raid in Rio de Janeiro that killed 64 people? This is unbelievable. 64 people died in a massive police raid in Rio on Tuesday. Among those killed, 60 are believed to be criminals. 2 civil police officers and 2 military police officers. Rio de Janeiro State Governor Claudio Castro said the death toll could rise as the operation is ongoing. Videos published online are said to show several fires in the area of the raid, with audible gunfire in the background. The videos are pretty frightening of this. I mean, there are people laying in the street that, were in their cars and they're, laying in the side of the street in the ditch, trying to hide out so they don't get shot. According to authorities, they launched the operation aiming to combat the territorial expansion of the Comando Vermelho criminal group. These videos are, you get a chance to go out and see them. This is unbelievable. The operation was allegedly in the works for over a year and involved more than 2,500 military and civilian personnel. At least 81 people have been arrested so far. 2 suspects who were shot are in custody at Pina Hospital. In total, around 100 police, yeah, I said that. Rio de Janeiro's authorities regularly conduct raids in favelas as part of the fight against organized crime. The current operation, however, is the deadliest in the city's history. Wow. I apologize. I didn't get a chance to listen to JR today, and if he covered this, I didn't hear it. But allegedly, House Republicans have deemed I'm so tired. I can't talk straight. Have deemed Biden pardons illegitimate. This GOP-led panel has cited the alleged abuse of the auto pen. Joe Biden's inner circle made concerted efforts to conceal the former president's cognitive decline during his time in office, said a report by the House Rep Committee on Oversight and Government Reform. The Republican-led panel also questioned some of the pardons that bore his signature, alleging that his aides had unimpeded access to his auto pen. In a document released on Tuesday titled The Biden Auto Pen Presidency, Decline, Delusion, and Deception in the White House. I'm going to try to find that, by the way, because this is a second reference to it that I saw today. And it could be a lot of fun to try to find this paper, or if it's all out there. Here it is, house.gov, 13 hours ago. Maybe I'll save this if JR hasn't. Well, it was 13 hours ago. He might have. But he's always right on top of things, and I didn't get to hear him today. Sorry, JR. But we're going to see if we can find. Oh, it's very nice. It's a very pretty cover. Shows Biden walking into the sunset there. Very nice. It's 100 pages. Holy shnikes. Let's get why don't we, I'm going to download this bad boy. JR didn't cover this at 100 pages. No way. So, well, maybe he did, and I just don't realize it. But we're going to see what happens. Can I do anything with this? Hello, how's the family? We don't know. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you? We don't know that either. Let us print it and see what occurs. Jart's going to be on downloads on the far right computer. Okay? That's where it's going to be, so you can see it. If you want to pull it up and maybe read the entire thing, it'll be there for you. So I've done all that I can do. Yep, there it is. Okay, it is there for us. I shall review it my damn self on top of that. But now where was I? Nikes. Did I hose this all up? Oh, did I lose my place? I'm all grumpy now. Maybe I have to keep going to find my spot. No, that's the other page. Crap. I was right in the middle of reading a pretty good... Oh, here it is. The committee, in a document released Tuesday, the one I just downloaded, the committee chaired by Rep. James Comer concluded that Biden's inner circle of loyalists attempted to mislead the nation regarding the president's diminished mental and physical capabilities. The lawmaker said this bore all the hallmarks of a cover-up. Oh my God, a government cover-up. Who'd have thunk it? We're America. We don't have cover-ups, do we? Oh, am I alarmed? I'm alarmed. So now I'm not only tired, I'm an alarmed, tired person. As President Biden declined Well, he's been declining since the first day I saw him. The guy was never too bright. His staff abused the auto pen and a lax chain of command policy to effect executive action that lack any documentation of whether they were in fact authorized. The panel singled out the clemency actions taken in the final days of the Biden presidency. In light of the above, the committee deems void all executive actions signed by the auto pen without proper, corresponding, contemporaneous, written approval traceable to the president's own consent, said the report. That's a bad precedent to set. Nobody's going to like it. Trump won't because he signs his own stuff, but nobody else is. How are you going to feel if you had something signed by President Reagan ages ago? So I had a client years and years ago that I represented in something, and way back when Ronald Reagan was governor of California, he was pardoned by Ronald Reagan, and he gave me his pardon. So I have the original signature on a pardon of a man signed by Ronald Reagan. So I have his signature as governor, not as president. So there you have it. Wonder if it's worth anything. I don't know. I never thought about it. But it wasn't an auto pen. And now they're JR's got these TVs up again, and now they're blowing up more boats or showing them. Yep, there's a October 27. Here's another blow up. I'm so tired of that. Let's see. So these are deemed void. The lawmakers called on the District of Columbia Board of Medicine to review the conduct of Biden's physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who invoked his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination when asked whether he had been ordered to lie about the former president's health. Yeah, but would it be a crime, well, if he'd been ordered to lie? The committee also recommended that the DOJ investigate several senior members of the Biden administration. Commenting on the report, Biden spokesperson dismissed its findings, insisted that there was no conspiracy, no cover-up, and no wrongdoing. In May, President Trump accused his predecessor's senior aides of committing treason at the highest level, according to him, by allegedly implementing unauthorized policies using Biden's auto pen, a device used to replicate a person's signature. I want one. You know what I had? I had a stamp. I had a stamp with my name on it. That was it, or with my signature on it. And now there's ways to, what do you call it? Do them electronically that are there. I have another topic that I'd like to talk about, but I'm not going to. We're going to stay in foreign land and not come back to home. But I think this week I want to do a show on some constitutional issues, and I am a little grumpy, but we can talk about that another night. I don't have time to get started on it and do it any justice, so I'm not going to do it tonight. But there is news about the French court hearing Macron's wife's gender case. The defendants cite free expression over sharing jokes and conspiracy posts about Brigitte Macron's identity. A French court has heard a case against people accused of spreading rumors that Brigitte Macron was born a male, in proceedings that have revived again. Well, revived means again, but here we are again. A conspiracy theory long denied by France's First Lady. The 2-day trial in Paris, where 10 defendants are accused of cyberbullying, was attended by Macron's daughter, who testified in her mother's absence, according to a Politico report on Tuesday. The defendants, ranging from a computer scientist to a disabled man who spends a lot of time on Twitter, were accused of posting messages mocking Macron's alleged gender, claiming she was born under her brother's name, and spreading conspiracy theories about a media cover-up. In court, they cited free expression, saying the posts were intended as satire or part of public debate. The only witness to take the stand was this daughter, testifying that her mother could not ignore the constant rumors and that the claims had made it impossible for her to lead a normal life. She said Macron had become cautious about her public appearances. The rumors about Emmanuel Macron's wife surfaced in 2021 and were launched by two French women, an independent journalist and a self-proclaimed spiritual medium. Their Facebook posts and a YouTube video spread widely, pushing the hashtag Jean-Michel Trogneux, which conspiracy theorists claim was Brigitte Macron's real name. Jean-Michel Trogneux was actually her brother. In court, Azir said she had seen her uncle recently and that he was doing very well. Macron sued the two women the following year for defamation and privacy violation and won compensation. American commentator Candace Owens was also mentioned during the trial, with several defendants admitting they had shared her videos or been influenced by her posts. Owens is also being sued by the Macrons in a separate case in Delaware over spreading similar claims online. A verdict in the Paris case is expected today. Has anybody seen that? I haven't seen it. Macrons have been married since 2007 and repeatedly face questions about their relationship. They met when he was a student in the school where she taught. Brigitte, 24 years his senior, has 3 children and 7 grandchildren. Yeah, that would probably bother you then to be called a man. Did you hear that they're re-erecting, that's a bad word, re-erecting monuments to ex-Confederates in Washington? The statue of Albert Pike was toppled and set on fire amid a BLM, protest, if you will, in 2020. The only outdoor memorial honoring a Confederate general in the U.S. Capitol was renovated and reinstalled. The monument to Massachusetts native Albert Pike reappeared on Sunday. It was first dedicated in 1901 by local Freemasons in honor of Pike's service to the fraternity, and stood in Judiciary Square until it was vandalized, pulled down, and set ablaze in June of 2020 amid the Black Lives Matter nationwide unrest. The damaged statue was removed from the scene by National Park Services shortly thereafter, while its pedestal was left in the square. The base was covered in pro-BLM graffiti and was cleaned of it after the BLM protests waned. The agency announced plans to reinstall the statue back in August. They cited U.S. President Donald Trump's executive order on making the District of Columbia safe and beautiful, and the order on restoring truth and sanity to American history. The restoration aligns with federal responsibilities under historic preservation law, as well as recent executive orders to beautify the nation's capital and reinstate pre-existing statues. The re-erecting of Pike's statue has been harshly criticized by Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, a Democrat representing the District of D.C., in Congress, who had introduced a bill demanding the permanent removal of the monument upon the initial announcement. She slammed the return of the statue as an affront to mostly black and brown residents of the District of Columbia. She also claimed the reinstallation of the monument was offensive to members of the military who serve honorably, pointing to Pike's turbulent career fighting for the rebellious South. See, I disagree with this sort of thing, and it's history, for God's sake. And somebody put it up long, long ago. They had a reason for doing so, and they put it up. It's a monument. It's history. Not all history is positive. Now, you learn things over the time periods, but your history kind of tells who you are. And we're supposed to be a country full of, freedom of speech, freedom to think how you like. I'm not saying I agree with the guy's point of view. I don't even know what they are. But it's interesting to read what other people have done in the past and try to learn from it. But if you're a judgmental cuss, you never will agree anyway. She said, Pike himself served dishonorably. How does she gets to claim this 100 and something years later? He took up arms against the United States. Okay, that's so every person who fought on the side of the South was dishonorable. He misappropriated funds, she said, and was ultimately captured and imprisoned by his own troops, she said. Confederate statues should be placed in museums as historic artifacts, not remain in parks or other locations that imply honor. Pike represents the worst of the Confederacy and has no claim to be memorialized in the nation's capital. Well, that was decided way before you. Here's my problem with this. If every 4 years we're going to tear down every offensive memorial, or those that were put up hundreds of years ago because the tides have turned, people have think differently or whatever, what kind of country are we? I mean, seriously, are we really that temporary? We don't have any history. How long, if you recall, when I was in Lithuania and Belarus and Russia here last 3 months ago, I spoke about the thousands, 1,500, more than 1,000 year overrunning of those countries, that entire area. So how come the Germans are no longer the bad guys, but Russia is? Who has Russia overrun recently besides trying to stand up for the Donbass? Seriously. Was there any Soviet action that took place? When Russia or the Soviet Union entered Berlin and defeated the German army, some million strong that they killed off the bulk of, and then they didn't leave because it was the treaty with the U.S. They didn't leave in part because of buffer zones, and in part because they had conquered the lands away from the Germans. But they allowed the native speaking places to rule their own place. They just wouldn't allow them to... they didn't want the Germans to rise again because they had done it twice, right? And so it had done it twice in that century already, in the 20th century. How is it that Russia is the bad guys, Germany isn't? How is it that Poland, who overran for plenty of times during the last several hundred years, other neighbors, there were Austria-Hungary, ran over a whole bunch. Turkey. I mean, everybody. If you're over there, everybody's a bad guy. What does that mean about history? What does it mean? We're supposed to... I was in Brest, which is in Belarus, and it was very near the border with Poland, and the back and forth over that small island. There was a small island fort that had stood for a couple hundred years and had been overrun back and forth. It's probably one of the best museums I ever visited. And I was just, that was historic, because you're watching, you get to go and see history from such a different perspective. But does that mean that every person in Belarus that now has Brest, which used to be a Russian outpost for under the Soviet Union forever? Belarus was, a Russian satellite country, right? And but it was overrun by Poland, then overrun by Belarus, then overrun by Poland again, and back and forth and back and forth. Several different. I believe they said the Turks came up one time. Whoever, there were so many different histories in there. It was unbelievable. But that's history. So when you read articles like this and the disgrace that, what people are doing, and they're burning history because it's history, nonsense. What did the old Trumpster say about this? I don't know if this article was quite some time ago. When did this one come out? Because you can go back and find it. Yep, in 2020. And they show the toppling of it on here. And Trump was president then. And he denounced the Washington, D.C. police for doing nothing to prevent this group of activists from bringing down a Confederate general statue and burning it. I don't know if you ever watched this video, but it's nonsense. Videos, go out and search for it. Videos emerged showing a group of protesters in the U.S. dismantling a statue. Activists made several unsuccessful attempts to tear down the monument and even had to take a break to review strategy before eventually knocking the statue from its pedestal, with local police making no attempt to intervene at any point. They just let them do it. That was it. And they didn't do a damn thing. They just let them do it. After the statue came down, to jubilant cheers from the crowd, the activists set it on fire. A video shows one of the protesters pouring what appears to be a flammable liquid under the burning statue, while the rest of the group applauded. At one point, a chant of "No justice, no peace" broke out. Shortly after, the 11-foot-high statue, which was the only outdoor sculpture in D.C. that honored a Confederate general, although he was depicted as a Freemason, as not as a soldier, was upended. Trump took a swipe at the police for making no attempt to thwart the monument's destruction. The D.C. police are not doing their job as they watch a statue be ripped down and burned, Trump tweeted, adding that those responsible for the act should be immediately arrested. A disgrace to our country, he said. General Pike statue is one of many that have been vandalized, either spray painted with graffiti or toppled in the past several weeks as people protesting police brutality. Well, what does this guy have to do with police brutality? This Pike dude have been toppled. They're on a mission to erase the nation's Confederate past, following the police killing of unarmed black man George Floyd in May, which sparked a current wave of unrest. On Thursday, a statue of George Washington in Portland, Oregon, received similar treatment. This is an old article, of course, when it was torn down and draped with a burning U.S. flag. While the latest spate of politically motivated vandalism has not resulted in injury, an earlier attempt to raise a monument in Virginia left one demonstrator with a serious head wound, prompting a popular science magazine to publish a comprehensive guide on how to bring monuments down without hurting anyone. It's unclear if the demonstrators in D.C. heeded any of the advice from this manual, however. I mean, I only share those with you. I mean, this is old news, but it was reinstalled today, this General Pike statue. And he, it's frustrating. Well, I was never against this back when they were doing it. I thought it was just foolish and stupid, and people that think that way are morons. It's friggin' history, and it's your history too. So there you go. That's our country, friends and neighbors. My name is Samuel Trapp. This is International Flavor. I appreciate you joining me this evening, and encourage you to do so every evening from 9 to 10:30 p.m. Sunday through Thursday. All my shows are kept at internationalflavor.com. This one will join there later tonight. I hope you all have a very good evening and a nice rainy day again tomorrow. I hear it's supposed to continue. Thanks for being with us, and I wish you a very good night.